Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Hot Topics in Astronomy. So, happy 2021. I know 2020 was a difficult year for everybody with COVID and all the particular events that were going on across the world. Hopefully, as we go into this new year, we can have a little bit of optimism as to hopefully an end to all of this COVID nonsense, as well as starting new beginnings. I know we kind of started roughly a little bit off foot at the beginning of the year, but hopefully as the year progresses, we start to get new and amazing events and new changes. Speaking of new events that are coming on the horizon, allow me to present to you some celestial events you get to see in 2021. I know with the Christmas star that happened with the planetary conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn coming together around about Christmas time, people were excited to see this unique event. So allow me to give you a heads up of what unique events to look for in the upcoming year, so that way you can mark your calendar. Sadly, the calendar I always enjoy is a year in space, but this year they didn't make them this year, so I had to find another calendar. But nonetheless, pull out your calendars and let's take a look at some of these unique events that you can definitely see. First up, February 11th, this year at 6:50 in the morning, just before sunrise. I know it's really early in the morning and it's probably a little early for many people, but if you take a moment to go out just before sunrise as you're starting to get ready for work or you're getting ready for school, take a look at the planetary conjunction of Jupiter and Venus. So it's another early morning star around about February. In fact, I wouldn't doubt it would be called the Valentine star. So basically, when you look towards the east, you'll see kind of two little blobs that are close together in the early morning glow. Make sure you have a nice view of the eastern horizon and it's relatively clear. Also, another planetary conjunction that's coming up is March 5th at 6 o'clock in the morning. Yes, I know these two conjunctions are early in the morning, but sadly, given the positions of the planets, this is when they do occur. Jupiter and Mercury this time. So slowly, the planet Jupiter is starting to make its path through most of the different planets. It was first Jupiter and Saturn. In February, it'll be Jupiter and Venus. And in March, it'll be Jupiter and Mercury. So Jupiter's making its rounds. Coming up in May, on the 25th, at roughly about 8 o'clock at night, when the moon's starting to rise, you'll get to see the supermoon. It'll be mostly full, but don't take it too far. What we mean by a supermoon is that it's just going to be slightly bigger than it was in its normal orbit. And the reason being is because the moon's orbit is elliptical. So sometimes it's further away from us and sometimes it's closer to us. So in this image that I have projected up here is what it looks like in its closest, what it's going to be the supermoon, and when it's in its farthest. So it'll just be slightly bigger in appearance, but not much, but it's still going to be the same size. But what happens next is really unique. Now, again, early morning risers, this is your year. This is when you get to see some amazing celestial events. So you early morning risers, pay attention. On the next morning at 6 o'clock in the morning is when we have a total lunar eclipse. Now, in 2019, we had a total lunar eclipse that happened in the evening. This year, it'll be early in the morning, just before sunrise. So here's a bit of an idea of what to anticipate for that morning. So if you really want to get up early, or stay up really, really late, the eclipse starts to begin roughly about 3 o'clock in the morning, and then it reaches the totality starts to begin around about 6 o'clock in the morning, and then it will end around about 6:30. And the direction is what is known as azimuth. It's basically a degree angle of the cardinal directions. So 0 being north and 180 being south. So for something that's roughly 243, it's between south, southwest-ish. And then of course at 6:42, the moon starts to set. So you'll get to see part of the total eclipse, but not all of it, but at least you get to see totality. So if you're willing to get up a little bit early to start seeing the moon going into an eclipse, it's an event worth seeing. Next up, we have on July 12th, another planetary conjunction. This time it's with Venus and Mars, and this is in the early evening. So this one will be a little easier to see. So if you look towards the west, just after sunset, around about 8 p.m., you'll kind of see these two stars that are relatively close together. One is kind of deep red in color, and the one is incredibly bright. That'll be the planetary conjunction of Venus and Mars. And you get to see a bit of a crescent moon just right above it. And the last planetary conjunction of 2021 will be Mercury and Mars. And this will be a kind of a bit of a tough one to see because they will be indeed close, kind of like what Jupiter and Saturn were, but they're harder to see because they're smaller planets. Unlike Jupiter and Saturn, which were big giants and you could definitely see a bright star, this time, not so much. That bright dot that you see up and to the left, that's the moon. This time, it's going to be this faint little star close to the horizon, roughly around about 7:50 at night. So just right after sunset, look for this faint little star close to the horizon. And if you have a pair of binoculars or a small telescope, you'll definitely get to see the two planets. And to help kind of round out the year, on November 19th at 3 o'clock in the morning, we'll have a partial lunar eclipse. Again, this is for you early morning risers. So we get to have a partial lunar eclipse, meaning it'll be mostly covered, but not quite from where we are. So the eclipse starts at roughly around about midnight and peaks at the maximum at roughly 3 o'clock in the morning. And then it ends at 6 o'clock in the morning. So this is for you that if you want to take the time to set your alarms, to take a moment to step out, take a look at the moon as it's eclipsed, and then go back to bed, I highly recommend checking it out. And of course, as always, we have meteor showers. We've already passed one on January 3rd. I didn't broadcast it because we were having to fight the moon, and I didn't know if many people would be able to get to see it that much. Plus, there was a chance of thunderstorms during that time. So hopefully we'll get to see them in 2022. But here are the upcoming meteor showers that are some of the strongest annual ones throughout the year. In fact, I did a presentation on meteor showers and how they're created. I'll leave a link in the description below, as well as a little indicator up here to tell you what to anticipate and how they're created. So these are some of the fun events that you can look forward to in the upcoming year. If you have any questions or comments, leave it down in the comments below. If you have any suggestions for topics you would like me to cover over in 2021, leave it down in the comments as well. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, never stop learning.